Welcome to the first of many clips of a recent motorcycle trip I took around the villages and towns in the Goulburn district. At the moment I'm at the service station and you could see by the map the route I took. And what I'm going to do is first of all talk about my bike, give you a bit of background about that, and then I'll talk about my camera setup, and then I'll just talk about things as I see them on the road and things that interest me. It takes about 17 and a half minutes to watch. So if you're interested in that and you're interested in listening to me talk while I do it, while you watch, then I say thank you, and I'll upload more clips with more commentary as we go along. All right, so let's start off and talk about my bike. It's a 2010 model Kawasaki Vulcan Voyager ABS. If you don't know the bike, I will put a link in the description to another clip that I made recently where I gave a very quick review of the bike and you can see what it looks like. As a bit of background, there were three models in the series, I think. There was the the Kawasaki Vulcan, the Vulcan Vaquero, and the Vulcan Voyager, which is the one I have. They were all somehow modelled on a Harley Davidson. I'm not sure if it was the Road King, the one with the alphabet of letters behind its name. There was a time where Kawasaki made a conscious effort to want to take on Harley in the cruiser design stakes, and these were the three models they released. Exactly how successful they were with that in Australia, I'm not sure. This model is no longer available in Australia, whereas you can still buy the Harley, but I think they were aiming at more the American market than the Australian market. Some of the features of this bike, as I said, it's a 1700V twin. It has ABS braking. It also has a system called K-Act braking, which means what happens is if you use the front brake lever, you activate both front discs and the rear disc all at the same time. Whereas if you use the foot brake, which is a substantial pedal, but if you just use the foot brake, you only activate the right front brake and the rear disc. So the stopping power is not as great. It's still quite effective and stops very well, but using the front lever activates all three in a balanced way. So it's a better system. It's a belt drive, and for those who are interested, this bike's got about 97,000 Ks on it, but still the original belt, so they do last. It has cruise control. It has, as I said, ABS. It's a 6-speed transmission. It has a built-in audio system, and it has a 12-volt charging socket, cigarette lighter type socket underneath the right-hand glove box. Now, the audio system plays AM and FM radio. It also has an option for satellite radio. Of course, we don't have that in Australia, but you can also, through auxiliary input, plug in your music player, or if you've got music on your phone or something like that, and play it through the bike's audio system. Pretty decent sized speakers inside the fairing, and they have that volume adjustment system. So as the speed of the bike goes up, the volume adjusts itself a little bit so you can hear it above the noise of the engine. It has a very tall, wide screen, which I find is very helpful in keeping the wind off you in winter time. It does restrict the airflow a little bit in summer, but not enough for me to be concerned about it. A couple of things to know about this bike. The model I have, which I bought in 2011, although it's a 2010 model, I bought it in 2011. This model has a bit of a problem with the exhaust heat on the right-hand side, down near the rider's leg. And so to compensate for that, Kawasaki in later models put a second fan behind the seat near the battery box to draw the heat away from that exhaust pipe and pump it out the other side of the bike past the rider's legs. I'm not sure how successful that was, but at least it was an acknowledgement by Kawasaki of things that people had been talking about on various forums about the bike. When it's fully loaded with fuel and everything, it's about 400 kilos, so it's quite a heavy bike. For those in America, if anyone's watching, it's about 900 pounds. It's quite a heavy bike. Where I live in Goulburn in New South Wales, they have nose-in parking, angle parking to the curb, and that's fine. You can always roll the bike in to the parking spot on the using the camber of the road, but walking it back out again is almost impossible. So an electric reverse would be a good idea. Now I know there are some few cruiser purists who would poo-poo that idea, and also people say would it bump up the cost. But I think it was only about 23,000 new right away. I got a good trade on my previous bike, so I didn't pay price, of course, but I think it's about 23,000 right away when they were new, as opposed to about 48k for the equivalent Harley. I know that on the Goldwing they have a electric speed limited reverse gear, and how that works is you just press the switch on the handlebar and it engages the reverse gear, and it can't go any faster than 5 kilometres an hour. So even if you were to grab the throttle and rip it open, you wouldn't get a surge, and the bike wouldn't suddenly rear back on you. It would make it so much easier for parking. I have parked rear end in here and not been fined for it, but I think you're always pressing your luck. You never know one day whether the enforcement officer's going to get a flea in his ear and just give you a fine for not parking properly. The area we're going along at the moment is called Grafton Street, which is a bit of a time zone of Goulburn's history. Many of the buildings here are from early days of Goulburn, and they've all got little plaques on them that tell you about when they were built and some of the uses that they've been put to before they became residences. Some were shops, some were schools, and so on. Now we're just going along Reynolds Street behind St Joseph's Convent and St Joseph's Primary School. Now, for those who don't know Goulburn, it's a city about 200 kilometres southwest of Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, and about 100 kilometres north of Goulburn. Just coming up to, north of Canberra. I'll get it right in a minute, north of Canberra. We're just coming up to the intersection of Reynolds Street and the Sydney Road, and on one corner there's the radio station offices, and on the opposite corner is Goulburn North School. Talking about schools for a moment, Goulburn is well served by schools. There are 7 public schools, 2 Catholic primary schools, 2 government high schools, or 2 public high schools, and also a Catholic high school. That's in a town with a population of about 25,000 people. In the area administered by the Goulburn-Mulwaree Council, I think they claim there's somewhere around 32,000 people. And they're aiming for a population of about 40,000 in the next decade or so. At the moment, we're well served with schools. We're going along Union Street here through to Roundabout and then up towards the Gordon Hotel for those in Goulburn who know the area that are following it. Now, I said I'd talk about the camera next. So the motorcycle has a fairly tall wide screen, as you'll see if you watch the video about the bike. And I've got a GoPro Hero 3, which one of my sons gave to me. He bought another camera to replace this one and said he didn't need anymore, so he gave it to me. I've got one of those plastic cases that they fit in and a suction cap thing that you just stick on the windscreen. So I did that, turned on the power, press record, and let it go, and hoped that the lens was pointing in a way that you could see what you're seeing now rather than just see clouds or see the road or something like that. I didn't know how long the battery would last in the camera, and I didn't know how long or how much footage I'd be able to get. As it turned out, the battery was still running when I got back to Goulburn after 231 k's of riding. But the card in the camera, which was a 16 gig card, had filled it up, so I couldn't record anymore. Somehow the camera itself made a series of clips of about 2 gig each. So at some stage in the future, I'm going to have to go and do the last leg of the ride from Gundaroo through to the Federal Highway and then along Lake George past Collector back to Goulburn. Going past the Tully Park golf course, which is one of 2 golf courses in Goulburn. And now we're crossing the Kenmore Bridge. The Kenmore Bridge spans the Wallandilly River, which flows through Goulburn and then eventually into Warragamba Dam, which is the Sydney's water supply. I do a little bit of running as well, and one of my runs I call the Three Bridges run. Starts at the bridge on the Crookle Road, at Marsden Weir, and then goes over this bridge here, and then if I'm feeling really energetic, goes over the new bridge on Bungonia Road, the Lansdowne Bridge. That's around 16 k's or up. I don't do it all the time, but I do it occasionally. The suburb we're going through at the moment is called Bradfordville, which, as I said, is a suburb of Goulburn. It's mainly residential. There's a little bit of light industry, a medical hub, and a school, and a small shopping centre. Coming up on the left-hand side here, the old squash courts. Building it had squash courts and other indoor sports and so on. Very popular for a while, and then building just the business closed, and the building's been empty for about 2 decades and just seems to be falling into disrepair. Nobody seems to have any interest in taking over the business or trying to revive it. Coming up on the right-hand side here is a new housing development called Joseph's Gate. It has a large area of land that used to be owned by the Catholic Church, and they sold off the land, and it's been turned into a housing development. There's a heritage listed historic building that was a home for girls at one stage that I think somebody has bought and is now turning into a function centre of some sort. There is a plan that the existing river walking track will be joined up with this section along the Wallumbilla River, and so add a little bit more to the walking tracks around town, and it'll go past the boathouse and the old swimming hole. Coming up on the right now is the old Kenmore mental hospital, as we used to call it, psychiatric hospital. It's been closed for probably 2 or 3 decades as well. The government closed the hospital and moved most of the people who were in and out into the community. Sold the property, and I think it's been sold several times since then, and now in the hands of a Chinese company that wants to redevelop it and doesn't quite know what to do with it and can't quite work out what's the best use of it. There's a bit of a dispute between the owners and the New South Wales government, who want the heritage buildings maintained, but the developers thinking, well, that's going to cost me money and I'm not going to make any money, so they're not doing very much, and the buildings are falling into disrepair. And there's kind of a bit of a Mexican standoff. Now, this road that we're on is called the Teralga Road. It's a B or C class road. New South Wales adopted that system of labelling roads A, B or C a couple of years ago. Other states like Tasmania and Victoria have had it for a very long time. I think it's a very good idea because it gives you an idea of the kind of roads you're going to go on. If you're going into an area you don't know about, it will give you some idea of what the roads are like, and you can back that into your riding style and so on. Usually it means the road is maintained, that there's a single lane each way. There will be lines marked down the centre, not always on the edges, and the shoulders and the edges can be a bit uneven sometimes, but generally it's pretty well maintained. I think it's councils that maintain the road mostly, but they get grants from the state government to do so. Goulburn is home to the New South Wales Police Academy, or to give its proper name, Charles Sturt Policing School. And so if you want to be a police officer, this is where you come to do your training and so on. And coming up shortly on the left-hand side will be some signs that indicate that we're passing the New South Wales Police Driver Training School, which is obviously the area where the highway patrol and motorcycle police are trained in the various riding skills and techniques that they need. I've noticed since there are no longer any Fords or Commodores for the police to choose from, that the police in Goulburn at least have a variety of vehicles that they get around in. There's a Kia, which I think is a Stinger. There's a Chrysler sedan of some sort, and there's also a BMW. I guess at some stage they'll work out which is the best of all of those vehicles for their needs and get a fleet of those. I suppose at some point they might even have to consider whether they need electric vehicles or not. As you go along this road, there are a couple of locality signs, Tarlo and Myrtleville, and there's actually nothing at either of those places, just a sign that says you're in the Tarlo locality or the Myrtleville locality. And I suppose the reason those signs pop up along country roads is it gives you some idea where you are for a start. But secondly, it's also handy if you need to call roadside assistance or the police or an emergency services need to find out where you are. They can ask you if you saw one of those signs recently. It might help to pinpoint whereabouts on the road you are. This road, you can notice that the trees seem to be quite close to the edge of the road in some cases, and that kind of gives that dappled shadow effect over the road. So sometimes you're riding through the shadow and your eyes adjust, and then you come out into the sunlight as it's coming today. It's a fairly sunny, cloudless day, so your eyes are adjusting. So that's the thing to think about when you're riding on these country roads as well. I said, it's councils that mainly maintain these roads for state government, and some sections of this road have recently had some road work on it, and we'll come up to a section shortly where the road has been widened and there's been guardrails put on either side of it. So, and it's made the shoulder a bit more stable as well. Meaning if you need to pull off the road, you've got a bit of space between you and the oncoming traffic. Generally, it's a pretty good road, and as I say, there are mostly straight sections that you can open up your bike and really find out how fast you can go if that's what you want to do. There are a few twisters as well. I just use the cruise control as much as I can because I find it gives you better fuel economy. I find it also means you can take your hand off the throttle every now and again and get some circulation, and hopefully you never have any concerns with the highway patrol officers either. Not a lot of traffic uses this road because there's not a lot of reason to go to Terralga. Beyond Terralga is Wombian Caves, which are limestone caves like the Jenolan Caves, but not as well known. And then you can either go to Mittagong or onto Oberon and Bathurst and Lithgow and the Central West and so on. This is the new section where you can see the guardrails and the road's a bit wider and your vision ahead is a bit better. Right, we're coming up almost to the end of the first clip now, so I'll say thank you to all those who have watched, and if you're interested, I will be adding another clip with more commentary later, which will be the next section of this road. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.